We have a problem and we need to address it. Hello and welcome. Welcome to Input English. Today we're going to modify an action camera to give it a feature that you can't easily buy on the market. So the challenge here is I have an action camera. This is a new model action camera made by DJI. It's a fine camera. It has some great features and we use it to make videos. So there's nothing wrong with this camera, but I would like it to accept standard filters. So here is a screw-on filter, and these are available widely, and I'd like to be able to screw one on, not this big, mind you, but I would like to adapt a filter. Now, the manufacturer of the action camera does offer some filters to go on this, but they're mostly neutral density filters, and that isn't what I need. So I thought, I'll just make an adapter. Well, I went online and I found a site on YouTube. I found a YouTube channel entitled 628 Creates. And the fellow on that channel said, well, this is a problem, let's fix it. And so what he advocated was to take a standard rubber lens protector and cut it out. So now he's got an adapter ring that he can put on the front of his lens, like that. And then you can put a standard adapter on that, and then you could screw a filter onto that. So I did that. I did exactly what he said, and pretty quickly it fell off, was lost in the grass, and it took me a day or two to find it. So I found it, and we're good. But I figured, okay, he is the innovator. He had the idea, and I give him full credit for the innovation, but I am assuming that he has the wrong material and that this rubber, readily available, easy to work with hand tools, just didn't perform for me. So I thought, well, I've got a lathe. Why don't I just make one out of brass and just glue it together with epoxy and it'll be fine. And then the brass turned out to be super expensive. So I sourced aluminum, 6061 aluminum extrusion. The outside diameter is 1.5 millimeters, inside diameter is 1.25 millimeters. And that is smaller than this and bigger than this. So I can turn it down to accept this. And I can turn it on the inside up. I can bore it out to go on the front of this with just tight enough tolerance that I can glue it together with epoxy. So that's the plan. I made measurements, and this outer diameter, which will be the inner diameter of this tube, is 32.3 roughly. Now I'm not going to do precision machining. I'm going to machine to fit. I'm going to bore out the inside until it just fits, just a slip fit, because I just need enough room for the epoxy. Okay, and then I'm going to turn this down until this slips onto it. Same thing. And again, I don't want it to be a precision machine thing. I just want it to fit and allow just a little bit of space for the epoxy, because epoxy needs dimension. So the part I'm going to make, here's a prototype of what I'm going to make. This is made from this pipe, and I've increased the diameter where it fits over the front of the lens, and it fits inside this ring. And so this would work, except this is my test run. And so we're going to go down to the shop and we're going to make one of these. And this one's a little bit too long. You know, it's too much this way. It needs to be about 3 millimeters, and this is more than 3.5 millimeters, and it's just too bulky. So we're going to make one for the real deal. So this is a boring operation. Okay, we're back up from the shop. We've made this little aluminum spacer. We did exactly what we said we were going to do. We wanted it to be big enough, big enough to fit over this lens cover and be spaced enough that I can put a little epoxy in there. Epoxy needs not much space, but it needs a little bit of space. So you don't necessarily have to have a super tight fit. And then we want the outside of it to be dimensioned to where this goes on with the same sort of tolerance. The front of the adapter can be glued onto that so that we can make this into a unit by epoxying everything together and letting it dry. Then we can screw a standard filter onto the front of this lens. So let me very carefully, what I'm going to do is clean off this thing, because this has been machined in a shop. It's got some burrs, so I need to take off the burrs. That's just a mechanical burr removal, super easy. And then I need to degrease it with alcohol, and that's super easy. Let it dry. And then I'll mix up 2-part JB Weld epoxy, and then we'll butter the inside of this, not very much, and we're going to glue it onto the front of the camera, but we're only going to glue it onto the lens cover, which is replaceable. You can buy a new one of those, which I already did. So we're going to glue it onto that, and then we're going to glue this onto that, and when it's all dry and cured, then I'll report back to you with the final result. So this is the final result, and what you can see is I have the adapter ring on the outside that I bought. I have the aluminum spacer ring that I made, and then I've got the glass lens cover that's provided as part of this camera assembly. And they've been glued together. Now, the front of it was very bright. The aluminum is bright, and what we don't want is light to come here, bounce off that aluminum, and then bounce off the filter and go into the lens and create low contrast. So what I did is I took a Sharpie, so I darkened the bright aluminum so we don't have a reflective bright aluminum spacer in there. So that's the final result, which you can see. So now I can take the lens cover, so now I can take the lens cover off of the action camera, and then this unit will screw onto those threads. So that's done. And now crank it down. So now the seal is good. Now the next thing I need is a filter for that. So this is a filter, and this is the right size. So now I screw the filter into that adapter. And now it'll take any filter you want, because these are standard 43mm filters. So no matter how exotic you want to get on putting filters on your action camera, you can do it. Now, I checked when I did all this, I checked to make sure that it didn't vignette. That is, it wasn't, this is a super wide angle lens, and what I didn't want is the corners cut off on the action camera. Now, there's a funny quirk about these Action 4 cameras, and that is when the image stabilization engages, it goes to the limits of the lens, and you do get a little vignette with this, but only when you do rapid movements of the camera. And that's easily fixed in post-production by adding a zoom of about 1.125. So if you do a 1/8 zoom in, that gets rid of that vignetting. It's not severe. It doesn't create any problems for your video production. So now I've got a standard filter on the front of my action camera. And the other thing I get with this is a standard lens cover. So this is an Action 4 with a standard 43 millimeter adapter ring that we had to make. And then now we've got standard filters available to us anytime we want them. And the bonus, I've got a nice snap-on lens cover to protect everything. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. We invite your comments below, and I hope that you join us in future videos. See you soon. Bye.